Welcome to part 2 of our 4-part video series covering real-life examples of narcissism and attachment styles. Attachment styles like anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and the lesser-known disorganized avoidant attachment styles. We're going to be continuing to discuss those topics and fear, bringing in the concept of fear into it, and love bombing as well. Now, if you missed part 1, go to the description, click on the link, watch that video first, and then I'll see you back here. Okay, back to the story. So he's working on this Evolve Care thing, and I moved there at the end of July, and he was supposed to finish it before I move. However, instead of working on the slides, he decides he's gonna go down this whole rabbit hole with AI and got completely distracted and was not doing what he was originally intending to do. So he didn't hit the deadline. And so when I got there was a lot of stress on him about, oh, I need to finish this, I need to do it. And so there wasn't like time for me. And there were some things that I told him, hey, when I get there, I pack in like a month, right? Like sell everything. So sold all of my furniture, all of my appliances, sold my car, and I only kept like books, personal items like clothing, shoes, stuff like that, even though I sold a ton of that too. And, crystals, of course, right? You gotta keep the crystals. And then writings that I've done. So, journals and, just keepsakes and stuff like that. Yearbooks, whatever, right? Pictures, important things. So I ship a bunch of stuff over. However, like I said, I sold pretty much like everything. Oh, and during this time period, I was also still I also had to go to another training and, had to come back and stuff like that. So I packed in a super, super short amount of time period. Before I got here, I told him, I said, look, I'm under an extreme amount of stress, obviously, right? And I was still working and everything. It's not like I took time off. I was still working. So I told him, I'm like, as soon as the sun's up, I'm up, and I'm pretty much doing stuff until the sun goes, actually after the sun goes down. So until like late at night. So I'm like, I'm exhausted. So there's a couple of things I would really enjoy doing when I get there. And one of them is I really want just a day at the ocean, just to relax and just reintegrate with the land and ground and, be with the elements. And one of the things he told me, he's like, oh, I'm really excited to take you on this particular hike. And I was like, yes, when I get there, I'd really want to do those two things. I'd want to go on a hike and then, the ocean. And then something nice for my birthday. It doesn't have to be fancy, but, maybe dinner and just, something, spending time with you. And he's like, yes, we got that. We're going to do all of that. So I get there, and the first day, so I was traveling from Florida. Oh, so I went to another training too. So and I also had to have everything done to be able to go to Florida, and because I was going to go from Florida to Hawaii. So, the other thing is, my rental agreement was also at the coming up in July. So all of these things were happening, right? And I was like, ooh, okay, the training was canceled, the tree fell in my house, my rental agreement's coming up. This is like, how many more signs could I, and there was also actually more signs too, but I won't get into that. But there's all of these different things, like this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm like, okay, great. So I fly to Florida, I'm there for a week, and then flying from Florida to Hawaii. So 2 plane changes, and I'm literally flying like all day long. And so I told him, I'm like, hey, when I get there, I'm going to be completely exhausted. And so I get there, and he's like, oh, let's go grocery shopping. Let's do all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I really said I wanted to just kind of like veg when I first get there, like maybe just sit on the couch and watch a movie and let my brain die for a minute, maybe take a nap or 2, and then I can face the world, right? And so I really just wanted veg time to where my mind didn't have to think, my body didn't have to be carrying boxes or packing or, whatever else. Now, here's the other thing that was going on. I tend to feel other people's emotions And I also feel my own emotions sometimes out of time. So sometimes I will feel my emotions like I will feel future emotions, but like in the present state. And it took me a while to figure out how this was happening, right? But what I started to notice is a pattern of, I would feel this emotion, like I'd be having an amazing day, right? Sun's shining, whatever, right? Looking at a rainbow, who knows? But I would all of a sudden feel like really sad or really angry or really, something that did not fit the situation at all. And so I'm like, man, why am I suddenly feeling this? I have no reason to be feeling this emotion. What I finally started to realize is that sometimes especially people that I'm close to, this would happen with my ex all the time, for example. He would be like really angry all of a sudden and like, because something's going on in his life, and all of a sudden like I would feel really angry and I'm like, what the hell is this? And so then eventually I started like texting, hey, you okay? And then he'd be like, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I started learning how to kind of like read the frequencies of people to where I'm like, oh, this anger feels like his frequency, right? So then at a certain point, I didn't have to text him. I could just ask him when I got home, like, how was your day? Because if I was at work, sometimes it could be a little bit disruptive to my day, right? And so then I'd be like, okay, well, I'll ask him when I get home, when I'm actually in the space to be able to have a conversation with him versus texting, something or whatnot. Now, the other thing is what I started to learn too, because sometimes I'd feel stuff and I'd like, well, whose is this, right? Well, then maybe a couple of days later or a week or two later, I would feel the exact same quality of the emotion. So in other words, like, how sometimes you feel anger, right? But it's this anger you felt in situation A felt completely different than the anger you felt in situation B. Well, what I started to realize is that the qualities of the anger that I would feel for no reason in the present, then a few days later would have the exact same qualities. Sometimes I would even get like an object that would come into play as well. And well, I can skip all of that. But anyway, point is, when I was flying from Florida to Hawaii, all of a sudden I felt this overwhelming sense of sadness. Like I literally started crying on the plane. And luckily I had a window seat so I could kind of like, do this, right? So I'm like, oh my God, why am I crying right now? This should be like one of the happiest moments of my life. I'm flying home. By the way, I was born in Hawaii. And I used to live here in the past. And so I had goals to come here, later in my future. So it's another reason why I was so like, okay, I guess this is just the time to move. I didn't expect it to happen for at least 2 more years, which is why I was really resistant in the first place. Another thing happened as well to, possibly even speed up the timeline too. And so I'm like, okay, I guess it's just the time for me to go. Well, anyway, I'm sitting there crying. And I'm like, I have no idea why this is happening. Well, when I get there, it's like he's done a completely 180 about how he's responding to me, about how he's treating me. And I'm like, okay, this is really strange. And I started to feel like really not good. And, he was like, of course, he noticed, right? And so I'm like, look, I don't know what's going on, but something is really wrong. And some of the things that were happening were also physical. Like I was saying a moment ago, I really wanted to kind of like rest when I got here. And it immediately was like, go, let's go do these things, right? But not like fun things like grocery shopping and going to Target and wherever else we went, right? To pick up some soap or something. I'm like, you could have done this, before I got here because you knew I was going to be tired. And because he knew I was going to be flying like literally all day. So now, knowing a lot of the stuff that I know about RQ, I'm like, okay, in his mind, he just thought, let's combine stuff versus thinking about the, what's going on with the other person, or like taking any of that into consideration. Also, he had spent all that time with AI. Now he's really behind on his slides and he really wanted to go in and, do that. So then we were supposed to go to the ocean, but then something happened with the property, like somebody was coming and he had to do something, and he could have put it off or changed the date. And I was like, well, if you have to take care of it, go ahead, we can go another day. But then the ocean never happened. And all of these things kept just adding up. And at first, when I was first planning on coming here, I was gonna ship my car. And he's like, no, don't ship your car. We can get you a new one. Don't worry about it. And, just buy a new one when you get here. And I'm like, okay. Well, and he's like, in the meantime, you can borrow my truck. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, fine. Because here's the thing, where we live on the Big Island, you need a car. It's not, public transportation kind of doesn't exist. It takes you hours to get 10 minutes. So you really pretty much need a car. And he's like, don't worry about it. Like, okay. Well, then I'm like, okay, well, can I just borrow your truck so I can maybe just go by myself at least? Oh, no. I don't let people borrow my truck. I don't like people borrowing my truck. Even though later, one of his friends was in town and he let him borrow the truck. Here's the things that start happening. And this is why it took some time to tell the story. Because, again, it's not my story. It's your story. It's someone who you love and care about's story. It's not just romantic partners either. It can be a family member. It can be a boss. Now, here's the other thing that was happening in my life was that things between me and my boss were getting, there was a lot of heated conversations so I was one of the VPs of the company, and we had the owner and we had the president. And I worked a lot more for the president than I did the owner. When I started working more with the owner, there were a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but there were just times where there was clashes. And it just so happened that Jeffrey overheard some of the conversations between me and my boss. And I would get off the phone call and I would ask for his input. I'm like, hey, Jeffrey, what could I have done better on this call? What went wrong? Why did this call go this direction? You're a third-party observer. And at the time we were still new. So it's not like he had a bunch of biases to where he was, only seeing me. It was still fresh enough because it was actually, one of the calls was actually the second time that I was in Hawaii. So this was still when we were very new. And so I asked him his opinion as a third-party observer. And he's like, this person is a total narcissist. Here are the different things. This was completely inappropriate. He should not have been saying those things to you on the call, blah, blah, blah. Well, it started getting worse and worse to where Jeffrey was like, you need to quit your job. We cannot be in a relationship if you're going to work for that company, because he should not be treating you this way. So I thought, okay, what can I do? Because I really, really, really loved my job. I did not want to quit my job. I loved what I did for a living. I had so much fun doing it. And Jeffrey was like, you just need to go do it on your own. And I'm like, at the time I kind of didn't want to. Like I said, I really, really loved what I did. Anyway, so here's the things that start happening. At first, they're like, oh yeah, we have this in common, we have that in common, and here's this piece of me that's like this piece of you. The way I describe it is like a frog boiling in water. You've heard the story, like you put a frog in, cold or cool water, room temperature water, or whatever it is. You put the frog in the pot in the room temperature water and you turn the heat on, but you keep turning it up so slowly that it's just getting a little bit warmer to where the frog doesn't realize that all of a sudden it's boiling and the frog dies, or however that works. And you know, I don't know if that's actually scientifically accurate. I think the frog would jump out of the pot. But anyway, old story, don't know where it came from. But that's a perfect analogy for explaining what was happening. Because at first it was yes, I want you to move. Oh, the other thing too is that part of the reason why he was showing me the slideshow of the house is because whenever I was walking around the house and I was experiencing the energy of it, and I was just so in tune and connected with the house. This is also another reason why I told this story. At one point when I was walking around the house, I said, it's like you've brought the inside outside. And the reason why is because the doors were just always open. Now, in this particular area in Kealakekua and Captain Cook, Hawaii, on the mountain, you don't really need air conditioning or heating or anything like that. Maybe like a space heater or fans, definitely. But it kind of stays at a really nice temperature year round. So a lot of the times people just have their doors open or just have screens. There's some places, like especially in the upper areas, where you don't even have like glass. You don't have a window, you just have the screen. When you walk to the different rooms, so I said it's like an L-shaped house, but like the office area, you actually walk outside and then walk back into the house. But it's, all covered and everything. And so it's as if you're kind of living both indoors and outdoors. Now, I'm a super big nature person. If I could live camping, I would. I really like indoor plumbing though, so that's not gonna happen. However, I love being in nature. I work a lot with the elements. I'm a very elemental being, and whatever that means. And so to me, having nature inside or outside, being in nature, and a lot of the everything was like glass and stuff like that. So, and there was also different pieces of the architecture where there was like a bunch of circle windows and stuff. Turns out that was actually a part of the original architecture. But when I was a kid, for whatever reason, I loved drawing floor plans. I loved drawing like architecture. I, at one point thought I was going to be an architect, but I realized, well, you also sometimes have to design boring stuff, and I didn't want to do that. The way the house was designed, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have designed similar structures. It was as if like someone literally built the house for me. And those are the exact words that he said, because part of the structure was there. Like some of the round windows were already there. But then he added on like the L-shaped part of it, and, added on more stuff to it. And so he said, I always knew I was building this for someone, and now I know who. And at one point towards the end of the evening, the first day I was there, I walked back out on the balcony, and this was towards the end of the evening. And I was just, again, kind of staring at nothing, but just feeling the presence and the energy that was there. And he comes up behind me and he goes, welcome home. That is love bombing. That right there, unless he truly meant it, which if he truly meant it, things would have went completely differently. But anyway, so whenever someone is making extravagant promises to you, or maybe they're buying you extravagant gifts, maybe they're just wealthy and, have fun with it, right? Maybe there can be different reasons. However, those are serious yellow flags. Those are very yellow flags. And when they continue in certain patterns, which we will now begin to talk about, they start to be red flags. So here he is talking about my narcissistic boss. And so me, if you guys know me, you know how much I delve into anything, research it. I love researching. I love going down rabbit holes, geeking out. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really dive into what is a narcissist, because everybody's a narcissist, right? If you watch pretty much any YouTube video, everybody's a narcissist. It's thrown out in the psychology community. It's thrown out in the spirituality community. Narcissist, blah, blah, blah. And then if you're an empath, which I am, one of the things that I've been working on within myself is to really just own who I am and not be shy. And if people think I'm crazy, that's their problem. They can go watch somebody else. Big deal, right? Because I'm going to be honest and true about who I am and what I'm doing. With this truly owning of who I am, before, I'd be maybe a little bit cautious about saying I'm an empath. I would sometimes say it, but I'd be like, I'm an empath, because now sometimes it's become like, oh, everybody's an empath too, right? You're either a narcissist or you're an empath, but you're never the narcissist, you're always the empath, right? They're the narcissist, everyone else is the narcissist, but you're the cute little empath. And then there's a lot of psychology on, why that comes into play a lot, because some people become empaths through, trauma they experienced as in childhood, and that's the direction they go. Other people become narcissists also because of trauma they experienced in childhood, but they go different in a different way. So a narcissist experienced trauma in childhood, and then they're like, oh no, I need to be about myself. I cannot be about others. I cannot trust others. I need to only think about myself. Well, empaths, kind of similar thing, except, in order to stay safe, I need to think about others. I really need to make sure I know what others are doing. Maybe I need to be a people pleaser. Maybe I need to, do all of these different things to be able to stay safe. It's all about staying safe. Fear, that's another aha moment. I've been doing a lot of work with fear lately, and in a process called Big Mind. Totally different other video. Lots of videos, actually. And I've already filmed some of them. Oh, by the way, another update. A lot of these videos are going to be out of order because I filmed stuff that I have not been releasing because of everything that's been happening with me. Okay. So, because part of my life has been amazing and another part of my life is like, what? So there's been this whole conflict internally with me. Again, more on that later, maybe. So with the narcissist, hold on, where was I? There's just too much to share right now. I guess I need to be making more videos. I'm reading this book because I'm, again, delving deep into it. Now, do I already know about narcissists? Of course. I went to school to learn about psychology and sociology, so very familiar with this. And, sometimes, even though it externally and you see other people dealing with it, in order to see it, that it's happening to you, that's affecting you. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the more people know about therapy or personal growth, sometimes the less they can see it in their own personal environment. Because they're like, oh, well, I teach this stuff, and so obviously I have to be I wouldn't say immune to it, but you have it under control, maybe, right? So I'm reading this book. Maybe I'll put a picture up of it because I highly recommend this book. Here's the thing though. It has examples of, hey, if the person's doing this, they're a narcissist. If a person's doing that, they're a narcissist. And so I'm reading all of this stuff, and I kid you not, it started happening in real time with Jeffrey. And I'm like, hold on, who's the narcissist? And so I'm like, you know what? I believe that a narcissist can recognize another narcissist easier than anybody else. And so I'm like, let me do some research to make sure that this is maybe a memory versus something that I'm thinking about, right? Like a memory of I learned this in school versus something that maybe I'm just thinking about, right? So I do some more research to make sure that this is actually a fact. And yes, it is true that narcissists will recognize another narcissist faster than anyone else will. And all of the things that I was talking about my boss, Jeffrey was fitting right into the same categories. As an example, So my boss happens to have been teaching for 25 years. And like there's a line in the book that says something about making yourself grandiose, right? Exaggerations about yourself, which is something that narcissists do. Look at the orange. So right now I'm doing some trainings with students in Europe, and in Europeans, they literally call him the orange problem. You know, the person that sits in the Oval Office. I don't want to get flagged, so I'm not saying any names, but yeah, he's being called the orange problem. So anyway, that particular person also fits into this category of the narcissist, right? Like playing out for everybody to see. And I think everybody can pretty much agree, even if you are for this person, because maybe you are, and which is totally fine. However, even if you are for this person, you can tell this person's a narcissist, right? And again, I don't want to just say like narcissist equals bad. Again, that's simply their childhood way of dealing with trauma. So it's not that they're going around saying like, I am an evil person because I am a narcissist, right? And please, if you know a narcissist, please don't just damn them or condemn them, or, you know, if it's in a situation where it's not healthy for you, yes, maybe you have to cut them out of your life. However, still do it with kindness and respect. Just because they're a certain way doesn't mean that you have to just think that they're bad or, you know, totally like dog them all the time, okay? Wanted to put that out there. So yes, my boss, been teaching for 25 years. Now in his case, it's kind of true. I mean, he does count when he was pretty young and he wasn't teaching like consistently. However, he has been teaching for a very long time. So in his case, it is, even though like, yes, he does it sometimes like in a way that could be like, well, I know what I'm talking about and you don't because I've been teaching for 25 years. Sometimes it can come across like in that energy, which is the narcissist type of grandiose energy. But I kid you not, Jeffrey also says, I've been teaching for 25 years. Huge difference though, in that, yes, he taught 25 years ago. However, he then didn't teach and, you know, maybe taught a couple more times. But then besides, he finally did teach an Evolve Care training, even though it was more like a trial he just invited his friends to. He hadn't taught for, I think, at least like maybe 4 years or so. And even when he was teaching, it wasn't consistent. And so I'm like, okay, hold on. You really have to be careful with your words, because if you say I've been teaching for 25 years, anyone who actually has been teaching for 25 years is going to feel very disrespected that you would say you've been doing that. Especially, I've gotten the opportunity to do some substitute teaching recently, and I've taught pre-K through 5th grade, like all of the levels, and special ed as well. And let me tell you, if I was a professional school teacher and I had been doing that for 25 years, and someone said to me that they've been teaching for 25 years, and it turns out that they do a training sometimes, off and on, I would be like, no, that is not okay. Because, and by the way, parents out there, please appreciate your teachers. Yes, some of them suck, but I got to see what they go through, and there's a reason why they are exhausted. Side note, had to mention that because it takes a lot to be a teacher. I could not do it professionally. So my hat is off to those who do, and I appreciate all of you greatly. Thank you very much. Join me next time for part 3 in the series. We're going to be delving deeper into the adventure. We'll be discussing how, well, I was controlled and I was not allowed to do or say certain things. I also stopped being me. We'll be releasing this in a few days. If you've seen this later, go ahead and check the description below. The link might already be there for binge watching purposes. All right, thank you for watching, and as always, choose love in all that you do. Mahalo. Or like, so this is funny too. So I've been doing a lot of work, and man, there's way too much to say in this update video. I've been doing a lot of work on, maybe this will be like several update videos. God, I don't even know. It's like 73 minutes right now. Cut somewhere. I don't know. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah. Which reminds me of something else I have to mention. But anyway, so where was I? So anyway, this bra strap, I don't know why it keeps doing this. Maybe it needs to be tightened or something. I don't know. Maybe it's my collar. Maybe it's my hair. Oh, how are we doing? Battery, you still are alive? Yeah, hopefully. Hair, you're still beautiful. Okay. It's so humid here today, so my hair is like, I have to like keep down, girl, down.